Hello class, my name is Josh Caldwell, and today I will be discussing George Whitefield, America's Spiritual Founding Father by Thomas S. Kidd, specifically Chapter 5, A Tour Around the American South and Bethesda Orphanage. For those of you not familiar with Whitefield, he was a very interesting character. In fact, one of the things that really sets him apart in the 1700s is that very much of what he did was using modern marketing and communications techniques. He even traveled with his own personal publicist, a fellow by the name of William Seward. He was so interesting, in fact, that Benjamin Franklin had read reports, ironically sent over by Whitefield, that Whitefield had spoken to large crowds of thousands of people, and Franklin wasn't so sure this was even possible. So Ben Franklin, being Ben Franklin, conducted an experiment. He stood at one end of a street in Philadelphia and had a friend at another end of the street speak as loudly as he could. And he measured the distance, and then he drew an arc. And in that area, he assumed that one person could occupy 2 square feet of area. He calculated that a person could be heard by 30,000 people without the aid of any sort of modern speakers or anything. In fact, whenever Franklin finally did meet Whitefield, he was so impressed with him that the two started a friendship and what turned out to be a very lucrative business venture for both of them that lasted for 31 years. In fact, Franklin was able to publish 43 books and pamphlets of Whitefield's just between 1740 and 1742. Whitefield was such a great orator that his detractors actually accused his followers of being wonky people and people who neglected their work just to hear him. And his message was mostly a Calvinist message. He emphasized the original sin quite a bit, but he told his mentor, John Wesley, that he never actually read Calvin. He came to the same conclusions by reading the Bible himself. He really perfected his oratory over in England, where he spoke mostly to Methodists. But it's when he came across to America that he realized he needed to broaden his appeal, and he did. He spoke to everybody. And when I mean everybody, I really mean that. He spoke to Anglicans, who should have been his natural adversaries. He spoke to Quakers, Presbyterians, every sect available in America. But he also spoke beyond the English immigrants. He spoke to the Dutch. He spoke to the Germans. He spoke to the French Huguenots. One of the things that really sets him apart was that he understood the concept of mass marketing. His other real mentor, the fellow he met in the United States, was a man named William Tennent Sr., the founder of Princeton University. He met Tennent even before he started his log cabin. One of the things that he's famous for saying is that all places were valuable to him to preach at because all places had lost souls. As I alluded to earlier, when he spoke in Germantown, Pennsylvania to the Germans, he spoke to 6,000 people. In the tiny town of Albington, Pennsylvania, he spoke to 2,000 people. When he went up to New York City, he spoke to huge crowds that even include Jews. He did manage to offend the Anglicans up there and not be able to use their church. But then after that experience in New York City, he turned south and he went through the southern colonies, and his message expanded, and he started preaching to slaves and freed Africans. He also occasionally spoke to Native Americans. And all of this culminated when he bought a plot of land in South Carolina. It was 500 acres, and he actually built an orphanage down there. And he went around and basically collected orphans from the colonies to raise them up to be ministers, basically in a Methodist tradition, which did cause some of his detractors to attack him. And he actually left the orphanage to go in the care of some of his friends and went about what he was good at. He went about raising money to support it. So what really makes Whitefield special is that his appeal was to so many people across such a large geographic area in the early 1700s. Thank you for listening. My name is Josh Caldwell.